Western India Vegetable Products sells vegetable oil. What are they called today? Wipro.
Leading self is like tuning your own instrument before you show up for the orchestra.
I once did one of these behavioral profiles and I got to know that I was stubborn.
Ultra leaders know that before they can lead others, they have to lead themselves.
The purpose of self-leadership isn't self-perfection. It's working on yourself so that others can thrive.
Two founders walk into with Satish, Manchikanti and Ajit, Sivaram. Execution is not a hustle. When you grow people, you grow everything. Two founders walk into.
Every act of leadership begins before anyone else arrives. It begins in the moments where you choose your state, where you notice your impact, when you decide who you're going to be when you walk into the room. Teams don't just listen to what we say, they catch how we are. When pressure rises, our tone becomes policy, our habits, how we take feedback, how we recover after a miss. Whatever we align decisions to our values quietly set the standard for everyone else. That's why leading yourself isn't just a private project. It isn't just inner work. It's an organizational practice. It's the flow beneath every other domain. So we start here together. This is where all leadership starts, with the person each of us is becoming. And that brings us to the question we want our whole leadership community to sit with. Are we the kind of people that we would choose to follow? As we deep dive into leading self, I think a key question every company needs to ask of their leaders is, as a community of leaders, are we the kind of people that we'd actually choose to follow? It's a critical question because we need to have that self-awareness of our leadership style, of who we are, of how we show up. And are we then committed to working on ourselves if that answer is yes or no?
Before leaders, we've got to be good human beings.
Yeah.
And it's so good to start there. As companies think about it, one of the key things, shallow views that I have seen, that there's a strong bias that we have towards, if we see people who have high technical knowledge or lots of experience, we just assume that they're going to have high EQ,
Yeah.
right? Emotional intelligence. But that's not very true, because self-leadership is a work of a lifetime. Each one of us have our blind spots, we have our biases.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the higher we go, there are less people who point that out to us. So it makes it very important for us to really take time to reflect, hold that mirror up to ourselves and say, okay, where am I doing right and what are the things I'm not getting right? And what makes it really important is this Daniel Goleman's research on emotional intelligence. It says that your emotional intelligence has 2x effect on the way you lead compared to your experience and your high IQ and technical knowledge. So you really need to kind of zone in and look at this, because self-leadership is really about me looking at myself and then adjusting how I'm leading, how I'm interacting with people so that my impact amplifies.
I love that.
And ultra leaders understand that.
It's so true, because sometimes looking in the mirror is not easy. We've not taught to be reflective, and what you see, you're like, oh, I'm not sure I want to deal with this, because it is dealing with our baggage, with our insecurities, with our challenges. And there's a book called Insight by Yurik, and she says this, that there's two types of self-awareness. There's internal self-awareness, there's external self-awareness. Because internal self-awareness is something some of us have, where we understand our values, our passions, what we love, our reactions, our aspirations, all of those. It's almost our inner compass. But then Yurik says this, that there's also this external self-awareness,
Very interesting.
which is, how do others see us? Because there is how we think we are, but then how others think we are. I remember doing one of these behavioral profiles first, and it told me I was stubborn, that others saw me as stubborn.
You should have just asked me, I would have told you.
And I was stubborn that I didn't believe that I was stubborn. So my external self-awareness was very low. And I think only 10 to 15% of people, research shows this, are actually truly self-aware of what others believe and how they perceive them, which is very interesting. Because those are our blind spots, like you said. Sometimes when self-awareness, we think of it as a solo sort of activity, but it isn't. There is relational part to it. There is understanding how people perceive me, people see me. Because self-awareness is inherently relational. You gain a fuller understanding of yourself and you actually are able to then move forward. Because you want to start with almost being aware of who you are But I think the second stage of that, because this is a journey, is then accepting that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if we don't accept it, we're always stuck in this comparison that you do these 5 things well and I stuck at this, back and forth. And then I feel like there is this journey leaders take. Well, once you accept it, to actually appreciate, to be grateful for who you are. And then that frees you up to be a leader because you're not insecure that, hey, you do these 5 things so much better than I do. And I celebrate that and celebrate this. And then it's a win-win. So self-awareness has that journey. It has those layers because the purpose of self-leadership, self-awareness is not perfection. It's not to fix all my life issues. It's to create conditions where I show up so that others can thrive.
Nice.
And that's the magic of being truly self-aware.
Love that. I show up so that others can thrive.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that. Talking about just leading self, the one kind of indicator for me is, I feel this is one of the most underrated, is just your emotional regulation. And that stands out to me because that's something I have struggled with and I have to very consciously work on it. One of the eye-openers is Talent Smart has this research where they have found that 90% of high performers are the ones who had higher emotional regulation. And I think the epitome of this emotional regulation for me is Nelson Mandela. 27 years in the prison and you come out and you're not bitter and angry, but you're calm and compassionate and almost wanting to lead the country on forgiveness. Where we all can aspire to be like him. But just even in my personal experience, one of the things I had to do for Toyota was to travel across India doing one of the leadership research projects. And I interviewed hundreds of people about leadership for them. And one of the key questions I asked when I met people is, hey, what is one thing you want in your leaders? And the answer that came on the top is this. It wasn't coaching, it wasn't mentoring, it wasn't like guidance. It was a simple ask. They said, we want leaders who don't lose it.
Wow.
People who can handle pressure and don't just panic.
That pressure.
Don't pass on that pressure. And that came on the top because ultra leaders have this ability to turn chaos into clarity, stress into stability. And ultra leaders have that ability because they're able to regulate themselves. They're able to build resilient teams that are anti-fragile. For me, that's an important one, the one that I constantly work towards and say, hey, this is the area that I want to get better.
I love that. And the whole regulation piece, nobody teaches us. They just teach us suppression our whole lives. It's such a difficult thing to regulate your emotions. Once you become a parent, you find out how much your children trigger you, right? And I think it's difficult for people because you're living so much outside of your comfort zone.
True.
You're pushed into scenarios where you're having conflict and then you have all of these newfound insecurities coming up that you thought you had left behind. It's critical for leaders when that happens to be in a space of, hey, we'll get through this, to have that, like what Carol Dweck calls a growth mindset. Without that, you're never going to survive. A big part of leading yourself is constantly working on yourself. There's no two ways about it. We've all heard of neuroplasticity. I love the term having a malleable mind in so many different ways. Do you remember Western India vegetable products?
No.
That is from 1945 to 1977. That's what Wipro was. They started as a company that sold vegetable oil.
That I know. Yeah.
Then in 1977, after that, Wipro was actually born. And today, if you ask any Gen Z, they will have no idea. That's the journey it took. But imagine the transformation for the people within Wipro to say, hey, we've built an empire here, but the future is here. That ability to change. Even think of how Slack was born. Tiny Speck was developing a game, and within the game, they had a chat interface.
Yeah.
The game died. The chat interface was so good, it survived, and it eventually became what we use today for our comms, which is Slack.
Beautiful.
We've seen this at a company level. We've seen it also at an individual level where leaders have showed. One of my favorite examples is Spanx, right? Sarah Blakely, how she was religiously being able to pivot, innovate, and showcase so many new things.
Yeah, she's a legend.
Yeah, like growth mindset. You can't lead without it.
Yeah, I love that. One thing you constantly talk about, how your growth lies outside your comfort zone, right? I think for me that visual has been the North Star to think about how that self-growth is something, as a leader, we really need to work towards that, and ultra leaders understand that. The metaphor that really kind of works for me when I think about leading self is Leading self is nothing but you kind of tuning your own instrument before you show up for the orchestra.
I love that.
Because if you are out of tune, you are not making any symphony. And ultra leaders understand that before they can lead others, they have to lead themselves.
Leading self is the quiet discipline behind every loud result. Notice the gap behind intention and impact. Steady your state when it counts, and to choose growth in public. As a leadership community, that means we see ourselves, internal and external awareness that we talked about. We self-regulate under pressure and we recover visibly, treating feedback as fuel, not just as judgment. Do this consistently and trust rises. Recovery speeds up and the culture starts to copy you. It's like tuning your own instrument before the orchestra begins, like Satish said. Get this right, and everything we play together sounds so much better.